Hi, my name is Michael Bernardino. I am professor and researcher at Federal University of Pampa from Southwest in Brazil. I will present our study called Is Usability Evaluation of DSL Still a Trending Topic? This paper presents an updated on the study from Rodrigues et al. That improves on the previous study, updating the usability DSL framework and also extending the usability evaluation taxonomy regarding usability heuristics and specific guidelines for DSL evaluation. For this study, the systematic literature review protocol, planning, execution, analysis, results proposed by Kitchen and Thought, a web-based tool to support systematic review, were used. The study allowed us to identify primary studies in both human-computer interaction and software engineering. The main focus was to identify and analyze the trending topics of the evaluation process of DSLs. The goals of the study were to examine whether HCII aspects were considered or not during the development of DSLs, to know and the techniques and approaches used to evaluate DSL, and whether there were problems and limitations regarding DSL evaluation when HCII techniques were used. To achieve those goals, we set following three research questions. RQ1 was the importance of usability considered during DSL development. RQ2, what were the evaluation techniques that were applied in the context of DSLs? And RQ3, what were the problems or limitations identified during the DSL usage? Search string strategy. The main digital libraries used were from ACM, HCII, IEEE, ScienceDirect, and Scopus. Our systematic literature searched papers from June 2016 to September 2020. Search string construction process. The search string was built based on terms from DSL and HCII, from usage, evaluation, and usability, and their synonyms. The frame shows the generic string used in the digital libraries. We performed search based on the search string for each database, returned the number of studies presented in this figure. The first phase of our systematic review, 243 papers were retrieved. When eliminating duplicate papers and applying the inclusion-exclusion equality criteria, 21 papers remained, which were thoroughly read. The quality evaluation process was performed by two evaluators who analyzed each of the study and answered the quality evaluation questions. This figure shows the number of papers that selected after each phase. Our answers for research questions from result analysis. RQ1 about the importance of usability in the development or evaluation of DSL was discussed in most of the selected studies. However, some studies quote usability evaluation instruments but do not describe the process itself. In a nutshell, some of these studies evaluated the environment in which the DSL is developed without evaluating the language itself. Some define usability criteria to evaluate the language, but without relating them to the quality of use criterion. Finally, some studies compared GPL with the DSL, also without discussing the usability process which could be involved in the development and evaluating of this language. From 21 articles, 8 are related to usability of DSL somehow, but do not consider usability during the DSL development process. Al-Hag et al. Presented a user evaluation to identify language usefulness. Nandra and Gordon adopted an evaluation process to compare the use of GPL to a DSL, but there was no discussion on usability criteria. Nozal et al. Addressed the user experience without relating that to the usability criteria. Henriques et al. Presented a DSL usability evaluation total system usability scale, which is a numerical usability evaluation scale with a focus on effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction. Liu et al. Evaluated the web platform that runs a DSL but not the language. Rodrigues Gil used an adaptation of usability metric for user experience, which is an adaptation of system usability scale. RQ2. What were the evaluation techniques that were applied in the context of DSLs? Researchers use quantitative 66.6% or qualitative 61.9% data to analyze the DSL usability. Several use both metrics, 38%, and only in 2 situations we could not identify the data type that were used by the researchers. Regarding technique, usability evaluation, 38% was the most used one. Other techniques were also used, that is, usability testing and heuristic evaluation. Several papers, 38%, did not describe which technique was used. Different instruments were applied in the usability evaluation. Questionnaire was the most used instrument, 61.9%, but other instruments to support data gathering, such as logs, scripts, interviews, audio and video recordings, and other tools that observe the tasks performed by the users during the evaluation also used. Only 2 papers did not describe the instruments that were used in the usability evaluation. RQ3. What were the problems or limitations identified during the DSL usage? The analyzed papers present some limitations or problems regarding to either the evaluated DSL or evaluation process that they performed. From the 21 selected articles, not all of they present the problems found in their DSL. Only HCII and Graham, Henriques et al., Liu et al., and Mosal et al. Somehow present the encountered problems. The other articles have limitations found in general, that is, in the designed DSL or in the evaluations. Basikova et al., Rodrigues et al., Silva et al. Did not present any problems or limitation in their studies. Evolution of usability evaluation for DSL. In the past 5 years, there was a significant increase in published studies on usability evaluation in DSL. The previous systematic literature review was performed without limiting the initial year and looked for papers that were published until 2016. In that systematic review, 12 papers were selected. The current systematic review selected 21 papers that were published from 2016 to 2020. This showed an increase of 75% of the number of selected papers that somehow are related to usability evaluation of DSLs. Hence, usability evaluation of DSL is still a trending topic. Actually, it seems that there is an increase on the research in this area. Some of the analyzed papers are more straightforward to mention that than others. In the previous systematic review, authors seemed to be interested to evaluate their DSL without any concern on the protocol, technique, and instruments that were used. Now, our interested point in the current systematic review, it was clear the increased concern on the development or organization of the techniques and instruments that are used to evaluate the DSL usability. This figure shows the main groups of categories represented as the external rectangles. For example, data type, instrument, profile user, and so on. In each of these groups, there is a set of categories. For example, a user profile can have the following categories: HCII expert, DSL expert, potential user, final user. This figure also presents new categories and one new group, that is, process, that were not present in the previous taxonomy. These new categories are represented by gray rectangles in the figure. Basically, the new categories are frameworks, USA DSL framework, and use.me process, USA DSL process, and instruments, data log, challenge solution, video recording, text recording, and fine software engineering evaluation method, quasi-experiment, and metrics, conciseness, readability, and comprehensibility. Furthermore, the figure also shows some categories represented by dashed round rectangles. These categories are not directly mentioned in the studies presented neither in the previous or in this systematic review, but are important in the development of a framework or and process to evaluate DSL. DSL usability evaluation still remains an important research topic since there are still several issues that need to be improved. For example, several authors that evaluate DSL usability do not use HCII methods and in several papers they do not describe the evaluation execution in a proper way. Some of the authors evaluated the usability using well-defined instruments, but do not use specific methods, while others use ad hoc methods to do that. Sometimes this lack of proper evaluation leads to the DSL being unsuccessful, because when the users are unable to use the language in its full or need to follow many steps and remember different paths, they end up giving up. Another relevant point is that language developers still do not use available usability frameworks or processes. Nonetheless, some researchers have proposed new ways to evaluate DSL usability. In these papers, we presented an extension to the previous published taxonomy for usability evaluation of DSLs. It's interesting to notice that after 5 years of the first published taxonomy, new categories were used by the researchers when evaluating the DSL. Thanks so much for your attention. Now I am available for any questions, or let us know your comments about our study.